Hello, everyone. I was telling my friend I have no idea what I was going to say because I've had such a fun evening with all of you and such a fun evening listening to all these amazing speakers. So, I'm somebody who's actually a pro at overthinking. And how many of you are overthinkers here? Just the thoughts just go on in a spiral. According to statistics, less than 35 years of age, all of you, younger ones, 75% of you are overthinkers. And all those who are slightly older, more mature, 50% of all of you are still overthinkers. And I would encourage you to keep overthinking it. I'm not asking you to sit in this silent, meditative space just to find that silence. Don't. Because your brain loves overthinking, and our brains love overthinking, and our brains are designed not just to keep us alive, to do the basic functions, but they are designed to help us predict. Now, prediction is what is my claim to fame in life. I've done 10,000 things, and I will tell you a few interesting stories from my life, but I want to tell you everything comes to predictions. And people do call me a fortune teller, but I don't. Because I know the science behind being able to predict anything in your life. See, your brain, as I said, is designed for it, and we all have these 5 besties sitting inside our head. And I worked extensively with a lot of scientists in this field as well, and I would really like to quote Dr. Siddharth Ramakrishnan's work here. He's a neuroscientist, and I was too much into wanting to look forward into the future as a child, like since the beginning. People like me are often called clairvoyants and psychics, but I would like to again come back to the science and the neuroscience of that aspect, because it's not just magic and it's not woo-woo. It's something that can be quantified, and our brain helps us to do that. So the 5 besties that I wanted to talk about that sit inside our head are the medial prefrontal cortex, just behind the third eye. So yeah, a lot of people like getting all spiritual around this, and every chakra that's in the system is connected to an organ of your body. So the third eye here, it's actually mystical, but there is a medial prefrontal cortex, the bandmaster, as I call it. You got the insula, that part of your brain that thinks negatively, that negative ninny, always looking at the cons in the list. And then you have the nucleus accumbens, the bestie who always encourages you, go for it, do it, it's positive, you can do it, all the positive thinker inside your head. Then, along with your temporal lobe, where all your memories are stored, the modern memory, the conscious mind is able to access that. Apart from that, you got the amygdala and the hippocampus. Now, I'm not going to give you a science lecture, not at all, but this is where it ends. These are the parts of our brain that help us in predicting the future, and you cannot live your life without predicting your next move. You plan for your day, you plan for your studies, you plan for your career, you plan everything for that next presentation, and as I stand here, the next speaker is planning what they're going to come and present, and they are going to predict their next move. You can't even walk on the ground without predicting if it's even. How did I start predicting? I was not hired to do that. When I was working as a young executive in a music company, I was responsible for launching the next Indian pop star week after week after week. And as a young 23-year-old young graduate from a media school, I was sitting in a studio somewhere in this amazing city of Mumbai with some of the best musicians out there and India's leading Punjabi pop star. I walk in to discuss the next day's shoot with him. But when I go there, I see him singing a song 10 minutes too long. In fact, I had heard his entire album was filled with songs 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. And I knew that that album will bomb. The sales team was planning 20 lakh copies. And I was telling them, come up with 2,000. And that's how the 2 is stuck. I said, come up with 2,000 copies. Indie pop is dying. You will not be able to sell these CDs and music cassettes. Everything was going digital around at that time in 2006-07. And I said, let's just have a digital release and put everything in that MP3, his biggest hits. There we were, putting in our resources as a music company, waiting to launch him again. The king is back and all that jazz. And I was like sitting there melting that we are going to put so much money. And I was the product head and I thought we are never going to be able to sell one copy. So I did what should not be done. I walked up to him in the studio. I said, excuse me, sir, can I please come in? And I said, don't record this song. Don't make it so long. Give me a radio edit of 2 minutes, 30 seconds, and I'll guarantee that it's going to be a big hit. Can you please do that for me? People were a little rattled, irritated with me. Who's this young girl? She's coming and tell us how to do our work. But I managed to get a radio edit out of him. The album did bomb. 20 lakh copies was sitting in the warehouse of the music company. We sold nothing more than 2,000 as I had predicted. And then he called me after 6 months and said, you have the radio edit, can we do something with it? We released it internationally, and that radio edit did well. So what I'm trying to say is, my brain was predicting the future of this project that I was working on, simply because I knew the positives, I knew the negatives, parts of the brain that look at things from all points of view. And there's another element that I want to talk about right now, what exactly helped me predict. And this is the concept of conceptual blending. Now, conceptual blending is actually a psychological creative thinking technique. This is something I had learned from a book by Giles Fauconnier and Mark Turner. You guys can pick it up too. It's a book called The Way We Think. And it teaches us how to do creative thinking. So as a media student, we studied a lot and we read everything, and this was one of those things that I had learned. And I knew that if you add a random stimulus to any existing thought, idea, any element, you come up with an idea that you never thought existed. You cannot do that just by thinking and overthinking. And see, the brain wants to predict because that's when your overthinking will stop. It will not stop by doing a quiet mind meditation. It will stop when you start predicting and actually looking into the future. Today, I laugh all the way to the bank, and all kinds of people line up at my doorstep. I have company heads, I have medical professionals, I have young students, I have mothers, I have people from all walks of life. Everybody, once they get to know that I can tell them what their future entails, they line up. And I'm able to stand here today with so much confidence and belief in this technique that I want to share it with you, that it's not woo-woo. You pick up a tarot card, the cards don't have magic. It's the reader's brain and the idea of conceptual blending. You take the question, and then you take that card, whatever it is that you're reading. You could be reading somebody's face, you could be reading their energy, you could be reading their birth chart, doesn't matter. When you mix the two, the random stimulus and the idea that something is already existing, the existing element, when you mix them, you and your brain, and if you just sit there and overthink a little bit and merge the two, you can come up with some amazing inventions, creative ideas, lead your company with confidence. Instead of melting with overthinking, you can actually come up with creative ideas and also predict your own and somebody else's future. I teach cartomancy. I teach it to random people who have never picked up a deck of cards. I teach it to people with just a simple playing card deck. So you see, being somebody who can look into anyone's future, somebody I've never met, it comes because of these faculties of my mind, and I know how to use them. And how do we blend it with a random stimulus? And this is something that my late teacher, Vincent Pitishi, taught a lot of tarot readers in the world who were not really trying to predict anything. They were just simply trying to solve their own issues, look at their life, understand their problems, deeply personal issues that they cannot open up in front of anyone, So Conceptual blending is the secret sauce in this dish, that helps anybody predict. Even people who are fortune tellers are completely unaware of that. And they think that it is some kind of magic that they are performing. It's not. Let's say it's God's grace. Everything is God's grace. The reason I'm standing here and breathing is God's grace. But we have to understand how the neuro-predictive part of our brain works. It's called neuroforecasting. And it is something that can be learned. It is such a fascinating thing to pick up a deck of cards, look at it, and tell about somebody's life. It is so empowering, and it fills my day, my years, and my calendar up. It's hard for me to find 1 hour to myself in a day, because that's the number of people I deal with, heal, and help. But I know I'm just somebody who understands how this thing works. Being a journalist, helping production companies with their plans for the future, being a writer, being in the field of music, being a radio jockey. I've done so much of stuff in my 20-year-long career. But today I'm giving you the secret of my predictive powers. It is basic conceptual blending and neuroforecasting. And yes, you can predict your future. That's my time. Thank you.